I'm going to basically discuss today this progress on work on stress-tolerant rice varieties, particularly in South Asia, although we are also working in South Asia and Africa. Of course, almost 50% area in South Asia is the rain-fed. Its proportion is much higher in Africa. And these rain-fed areas are usually prone to one or other abiotic stresses. It mainly is flood and drought. And salinity is also an issue, and cold and iron toxicity is a serious issue in certain countries in Africa. So these are the stresses we are targeting. Of course, IRRI started working on flood tolerance since early as 1978. And as Kyle mentioned that it took them almost 25 years to characterize the flood tolerant gene and map it. But now technology has advanced a lot. This gene can be put up in new variety in the span of 2 years. And actual emphasis on stress-tolerant varieties was basically started with the introduction of this project on stress-tolerant rice for Africa and South Asia. It is a large program funded by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. It was introduced in late 2007. It has already completed first 2 phases, and now it is extended for the third 5 years phase. So what I'm going to basically discuss here is mainly the progress of this project, and then how this ATI projects, mainly run by the Kyle and Ellen, is helping us in basically developing our strategies for the dissemination of these varieties. In South Asia, this project covers 3 countries, India, Bangladesh, and Nepal, and usually we are concentrating on 3 stresses, that is the flood, drought, and salt. In Africa, iron toxicity and cold are 2 additional stresses we are dealing. In Africa, of course, we are covering 18 countries. 14 countries are covered by mainly the Africa rice, and 4 countries in basically the East Africa is covered by the IRRI. Of course, we are working closely with each other. As far as this project is concerned, it deals with the upstream research and also the downstream, even up to the dissemination and also the capacity building and other aspects. So under this project, we are looking for the new genes and QTLs for the different stresses. We can provide the tolerance to different stresses. Getting these genes and QTLs transferred usually in the background of the mega varieties, which are already popular, but they are not stress tolerant. And then sharing this material with the national system, getting them evaluated at the national system, and then, of course, trying to speed up the process of release of these varieties so that they are available to the farmers as soon as possible. Then we are playing some seed multiplication catalytic role with respect to seed multiplication and dissemination. Capacity building is again important aspect, and we are also dealing with the seed policies which can help us to speed up the process of the seed multiplication and dissemination. Of course, new genes and QTLs have been identified now for most of these stresses. I mentioned here flash flood, anaerobic germination, salinity tolerance, and also drought tolerance. We have a number of now good QTLs with the major effect, which can express in multiple background, even for drought tolerance, and again for cold tolerance. So I will discuss briefly about at what stage we are at the technology development. And as already mentioned by Kyle, that the sub-1 gene was discovered by IRRI. Then Sorna was the first variety where the sub-1 gene was transferred. And later on, it was transferred to the 9 mega varieties from South and Southeast Asia. And many of them are now available to the farmers for the cultivation. The effect of this gene is really, it's difficult to believe sometimes. It's a magical effect you can see here. This left-hand side, the farmer, after 2 weeks of flood, he thought that everything is gone. But once water receded, same variety regenerated, he got more than 4 tons of the yield. So this is the farmer's field in UP. This is another situation you can see in Bihar in 2011. This entire area, around 1,000 hectares, was flooded for 10 days under 8 feet deep water. But once water receded, everything was gone, and except the soda sub-1, and farmers got more than 4 tons of the yield. So the field performance of these varieties is extremely good. Here is another situation in UP where flood was late. You can see these are the long duration flood. What Kyle shows was usually for 3 to 9 days. Here it's usually 2 weeks of flood. So it can provide excellent protection even up to the 3 weeks of the 2 to 3 weeks of flooding. This is another situation in Bangladesh. You can see all the fields are retransplanted except the one in the center, that is Swarna Sub-1. Now we have the 4 varieties these days released in the South Asia. You can see these are the situation now. Swarna was the variety which was originally released in one of the states in India. Now Swarna Sub-1 is released from 5 countries. It's already going to be released soon in the 2 more countries. Then others, IS-64, BR-11, Chehrang, and Samha-Mysore Sub-1, they are mega varieties of South Asia. Now they are available to the farmers for the cultivation, and some of them are now going to compete with the Swarna Sub-1 itself because they have their own traits. Usually there are 3 types of flooding. You can see here the Sub-1 gene works for the transient flash floods, usually 2 to 3 weeks. But if flooding is there beyond 3 weeks, or if more than 30 centimeter water stagnates beyond 3 weeks, then Sub-1 gene cannot work. So for that, we need the stagnant flood tolerance. Then again, Sub-1 gene is expressed only in the seedling, not in the seed. If you are going for direct seeding, if there is rainfall next day, you can't see the effect of Sub-1 gene. There would not be proper germination. And for that, you need anaerobic germination gene. This I've mentioned here, first one. For direct seeding, this gene is very important. And now we have already identified the QTL for anaerobic germination, and I'll combine this QTL with the Sub-1 gene. So we have lines which are not only having the flash flood tolerance, but also anaerobic germination tolerance, and they are being evaluated in the multi-location in different countries in South Asia. Similarly, for stagnant flood by classical breeding, we have not been able to really characterize the QTL, but by classical breeding, we have combined this with the flash flood tolerance, and these materials soon, within a couple of years, they will be available to the farmers in South Asia for the cultivation. Our purpose is to combine all the 3 genes together. Maybe next 3 to 4 years, you can have the variety that can take care of any type of the flood situation. So salinity and sodicity is a serious problem. We have the inland salinity, you might be aware of, then the coastal salinity. And coastal salinity is very important for Bangladesh. More than 1 million hectare area is not cultivated only because of the salinity in the South Bangladesh. And we have come up with the number of the varieties which have good salinity tolerance. And I will show the performance in field some of these varieties. This is the variety released only this year in India, CSR 43, for inland salinity, performing very well, and also the short duration. Then this is the variety you can see in the Bangladesh, Biridhan 55, and as compared to the highest yielding variety in that country, Biridhan 28 and 29, you can see in saline soil how good contrast is. So they are doing very well. This is another situation. You can see the Binadhan 8, this again salt tolerant variety released in Bangladesh. Next field, they are making the salt. So they can tolerate the very high level of salinity here. Then this is the new variety, Binadhan 10, and this is supposed to be the highest yielding variety in that country. It's only released this year, and I'm hoping that this is going to this is going to be very popular, not only the salt-affected area, but also it is going to replace Binadhan 28 and 29, which are dominating in the country since last 20 years. So these varieties are doing very well, and even now saltol gene is characterized. We are using the mass marker-assisted by crossbreeding to transfer this gene in the background of other mega varieties. So some of them we have listed. Then again, we are combining the saltol with the Sub-1 gene, mainly for the wet season, where both flooding and the salinity, salt is the issue. So some of these lines are already developed, and they are being evaluated at farmers' field, and they have shown the good promise, and hopefully by within a year or so, some of them will be available to the farmers for the cultivation. Drought is another stress. Few years back, we were not in position to say that we are going to have anything for drought tolerance, but good thing is that now we have number of good QTLs available, and they have major effect. They are able to provide the drought tolerance. We have number of varieties released in these countries, and mainly through classical breeding. Only last few of them have come through the mass now, and they are showing excellent performance, 1 to 1.2 tons per hectare yield advantage under the stress condition. This is the Sahbagi Dhan, it's released in India. It's also moving very fast, just like Swarna Sub-1. And its short duration, that is added advantage for this variety. and this has genuine drought tolerance. And it's now released in all the 3 countries, India, Bangladesh, and Nepal, this variety. Then, of course, this IR64 is very popular mega variety of that region, and 2 drought-tolerant QTLs were transferred using the mast in the background of this variety, and 2 of these are already released. One of them in Nepal, and another one is released in India for the commercial cultivation. We are hoping that this material too is going to move fast. As you can see here, the multi-location testing is not only under drought, but even under normal conditions, these varieties have higher yield than IR64. So we are hoping that they will replace the IR64 even in the normal areas. Then, of course, drought tolerance, we have come, actually in many areas, it's not only only one stress, it's more than one stress, usually multiple stress are the problem. A crop may face the drought and flood at different times in the same crop season. So now we have combined the flood tolerance and drought tolerance in the same variety, and they are now being evaluated at farmers' field. First 2 lines were generated through classical breeding, and now we, in the background of SORNA Sub-1, 3 drought-tolerant QTLs are transferred, and this line, this year, we are testing with the national system for field evaluation. So now some of the multiple stress tolerant varieties are already available for the cultivation. Then, of course, on seed multiplication and dissemination, as I mentioned, that our role is catalytic. Entire work is being done by the national system. Mainly the individual countries, we are working with a large number of partners in these countries, mainly the Ministry of Agriculture in all these 3 countries, and the state governments in India, private sector, and public sector seed corporations, research institutions, and universities. So they are our partners, but we are playing mainly the catalytic but central role here. Here, what we have tried to do basically, we tried to convince the individual government that unless you be involved, actively involved, we are not in position to move anything. So basically, it's a sharing of the ownership of the project with the national system, and aligning the project is basically aligning the project objectives with the national priorities of the target countries. Then aligning this, basically this technology with the national schemes and programs with the similar goals. Now there are a lot of schemes are running on food security or climate change, so they fit everywhere basically. So we are trying to, and these basically mega schemes are now using these varieties as their major technologies for the promotion. Then again, partnership and networking, we are working with a large number of partners. And then through this project, we are addressing the entire seed chain, not at one step alone. And other interventions, what we are doing with the seed companies, we are helping them to make their seed plans so that this variety fits in the system. Then we are also trying to document the seed production by mainly by formal, semi-formal, and informal sectors. We are also working on characterization of stress-prone areas and sharing this information with the state governments and federal governments so that they can properly target these varieties. Then, of course, we have convinced them to go for pre-release promotion and seed multiplication that will help in creating the seed demand once a variety is released and faster upscaling of the varieties. Then going for varietal tracking, to also doing something on impact assessment, then some support studies to basically optimize the seed dissemination strategies, then mobilization of additional investment and resources is another aspect we are concentrating here. And as we have listed here, the government of India during last 3 years, they spent more than $55 million for promotion of these varieties. Then state governments in India, they are spending a lot through their own schemes for their promotion. Then Department of Biotechnology in India, they gave $4 million and to transfer these genes and QTLs to more number of Indian varieties. USAID came big support to us in Bangladesh. Then ECI has also joined hands basically to support the development of the management practices for these varieties. It's not only variety alone. If you want to really exploit their full potential, you must have appropriate management practices which are suited for a stress-prone environment. Then, of course, we are working a lot on the policy issues because we are dealing with the 3 countries, and even seed movement across these countries is difficult presently. So we are working with them on joint varietal release and evaluation, reciprocal recognition of data for varietal release, because same material is being tested in different countries, being released at different time. Then our purpose is if there is harmonization of the seed system in this country, that can speed up the process. So only last year, government, India, Bangladesh, and the IRRI, we signed the agreement for regional cooperation. And we are hoping that by end of this year, this agreement will be implemented. That will speed up the process. This agreement says that the variety released in Bangladesh, there is no need to test in India for same agroecology. They can move ahead as considered as released in these countries. I'm hoping that by end of this year, this will be implemented. So of course, this agreement was signed only last year. We are working with a large number of partners in all the three countries, and actual work is being done by these partners. So our work is more coordination. And as you can see here, we are working with a large number of small and medium seed growers, private seed growers, not only for seed multiplication and business, but also to create the awareness among the farmers about the new varieties. And these actually partners have taken care of most of the work. And as already mentioned earlier, that the STRASA Sub-Saharan 200-gram seed was shared with one of the research institutions late in 2005. And now this variety has gone to more than 4 million farmers in India and around 5 million farmers in South Asia. Probably this is the fastest moving variety in the rice history. It has moved faster than the IR8, this the Green Revolution era variety. Other varieties which are moving very fast are the Sehwagi Dhan. It's already gone to almost 500,000 farmers. And also this Bina 8 and 10, which are the salt-tolerant varieties in Bangladesh. In a span of 2 years, these two varieties too have moved very fast. Of course, as Kyle mentioned, the number of his findings, some of these findings we found very useful for us, like the flood, what he mentioned about the efficiency gain and also the equity gains and efficiency gains. And these information be shared with the government of India and telling that what advantage your investment is making and how your investment is helping to target the civil cost and other farmers. Our Director General, most of this presentation, he basically mentioned about this work. And then what he mentioned that the farmers which have access to these STRASA Sub-Saharan, which is risk-reducing technology, they are prone to invest more in input investment that will that will help in the production even during the years when there is no stress. And these are basically the information, they are quite useful for us. And these information we are sharing with the government of India, particularly they are investing a lot to justify their investment, and they in turn will share in the parliament to get their budget approved for investment in these regions. And then the information what we got from him, because we are spending a lot, government of India, their major dissemination strategy they are adopting through seed minikits, including in Bangladesh also, minikits distribution, cluster demonstrations, and these are the strategies. And as he mentioned that their adoption efficiency is not that high for these strategies, and these studies have demonstrated that making the seed available in the business mode may be more effective strategy for the seed dissemination. So we discussed with these governments, and now since this year, because of in view of the findings from these projects, this ATI project, now we are going to concentrate a lot on the strengthening of the seed system in these areas to make the seed available, by convincing the state corporations and federal government corporations and private sector to have more of the dealers and distributors concentrated in these areas. And also government of India has agreed they are going to finance a project to us to develop the seed entrepreneurship in these areas, mainly the small and medium seed growers, so that for local supply of the seed, so that seed supply could be strengthened. For a very long, we were thinking that what would be the best strategy. More number of minikit per village and less number of villages, total villages covered, or less number of minikit per village and cover the more number of villages. But now his studies have demonstrated that mainly you have to go for cover the relatively larger number of the farmers per village to have any significant behavioral changes. So this is how this ATI project is feeding directly into our programs, and that is helping us to revise our strategies to make the adoption more effective and dissemination of these varieties faster. Of course, there are a number of these questions which can be answered in future. Whether availability of credit facility, now farmers are ready to spend more, whether by making the credit facility available, whether you can further speed up the process, how stress-tolerant varieties are benefiting the landless laborers, how the nature of affect the dissemination of the stress-tolerant varieties, like drought and flood, they occur frequencies once in 4 or 5 years, but salt-affected soils remain there, so stress is totally different type. And then efficiency of dissemination of different dissemination strategies followed by government, like mini kits, cluster demonstrations, or seed production cum demonstration, which is more efficient, or how to have the balance to have the most effective dissemination. And relative adoption of the mass-generated varieties and normal varieties, progress, of course, progressive farmers strategy, where we give the seed to only progressive farmers and see that if speed is faster, there are gender issues. And of course, how to assess the dissemination through informal seed sector. And then the most important question mark is how many farmers are covered and how much area is covered. So far, we are relying maximum on the seed, which is moving in the system, because that we can document more accurately. But is there a better way of doing that? Because most of the time, foundation asks us how many farmers and how much area. So these are the many questions. There are many more questions, of course, they can be answered. And these type of the projects like ATI, if they can take up some of these issues, that will definitely help with the speed of the technology dissemination. Thank you very much.